Main winner on my end was the main event, Alex Pereira, getting the job done. He was my four weight, and he got the job done. I think Jiri had him on the ropes, and he had Jiri on the ropes. It was a very good fight. Definitely a fight I'd be open to seeing happen again down the line. But Pereira hits him with the counter, makes Jiri wobble. They thought the fight ended early. They being a lot of the commentators and me as well. I still wonder if the fight ends early. But even Jiri himself said, I was out. So you got to give respect to the guy who admits it and clears out the doubt. He admits to being out. Other than that, around the UFC, Jose gets the Aspinall pick correct. So even though Jose had Prochaska, he did have Aspinall. So props to that. Jose and I both losing the Mackenzie Dern pick. That's rough. Mackenzie Dern did not have a fun night. The main one, though, is Sabatini, obviously. He was a bigger pick of ours, and he just couldn't get it done, man. It's one of those things where I had faith that Sabatini wasn't going to get submitted. Well, he didn't get submitted. He overextended for a takedown and got his ass knocked out. And I apologize for the profanities, but that's just exactly what happened. And I'm still ready to fade Diego Lopez when he faces a reputable enough striker. But it's clear that if you're going to take Diego Lopez to the ground, you're going to need to be able to do it convincingly or give up and just strike the man. So Pat, Sabatini learned that the hard way. And finally, of course, last but not least, Jose had Benoit Saint Denis and got the dub there. Nice little kick. I had a low weight on Frivola, so it wasn't too bad of a loss for me, as I respected Benoit Saint Denis power, and Jose gets the pick right. So moving on, let's continue. It looks like Jose's a little hotter than I am coming into this Saturday, but I have full faith that Jose and I have some absolute bangers and accurate winning picks for you guys. Starting as always with my 5-weight and a quick recap. We bring our picks here at Moneyline MMA in the order of weight confidence. So we pick 5 of the main card fights and assign them a weight in terms of confidence. And we'll discuss our most confident to least confident picks. 5 weights the most confident, 1 weight is the least confident. Starting with my 5-weight of this Saturday afternoon in Las Vegas, the beautiful town. This will be a day card. Prelims starting at 1 p.m. Central Time. So we'll see about a 5 p.m. main card start around the Central Time, 3 p.m. in Vegas. And my 5-weight pick of what's coming this Saturday afternoon is going to be the co-main event. One of the bigger favorites on the card as well, as Michael Morales is facing off against Jake Matthews in a welterweight bout. I've got my 5-weight here on Michael Morales. I think Michael Morales is the real deal, personally. He's sitting at minus 265. Jake Matthews a plus 200 dog. Michael Morales is 4-0 in the UFC, coming off of a decision win against Max Griffin, in which I was impressed by, to be quite honest. He deflects 8 of Max Griffin's takedown attempts, lands one of his own, and doubles Max Griffin's significant strike count to get the easy decision win. Jake Matthews is kind of win-loss as of late, most recently losing to Matt Semmelsberger by decision, but beating Darius Flowers earlier this year via submission. Personally, Jose, I just don't see the submission becoming a play here. Michael Morales has a phenomenal takedown defense of 91%, and he's faced some decent grapplers. Obviously, Max Griffin had no chance, and I think that's going to continue. Michael Morales also has size. We can talk about a 6-inch reach advantage here. I think that's significant. He's also got an inch of height. I just think Michael Morales, with his history, I believe he's a Muay Thai champion. He really is showing to be a multi-tool in the sense that he's gotten a round 1 knockout, but he's also gotten a round 3 knockout, but he's also brought a fight all the way to the distance and gotten a unanimous win. So it's clear that he's got conditioning. It's clear that he's got an understanding of an urgency to finish fights if it's needed. I don't know, man. What do you think, Jose? I think Michael Morales is the lock here at 5, my 5-weight.
I agree with you, Nick. I'm definitely on Team Michael Morales taking the win on this one. And you said it best, he's really young, only 23 years old, but this guy's fighting like, he's almost like a vet. He's not rushing to get the finishes. He's dragging it out and getting the wins via unanimous decision in the third round against the likes of like Max Griffin and then finishing people like Trevin Giles in the first round. He's gonna pick and choose his punches, and Jake Matthews, he's not easy to put out. Out of his career losses, he's only been KO'd once. Maybe, yeah, I don't know if Michael Morales will get the submission. I think he's more likely to win this via unanimous decision. Reason being is like the striking differential, even though he hasn't been in the UFC as much, he does land a good amount. Like, already just for the 5.17 significant strikes have landed per minute in his last UFC fight, essentially. So that being said, he does absorb quite a bit too, but I think the size difference here is going to play a big role in him tagging up Jake Matthews, and he could finish him if he does, but I think he's more likely just to get a unanimous decision win over Jake Matthews. The only thing Jake Matthews definitely has over Michael Morales is the experience in the UFC, but he doesn't really have the best momentum right now. He's kind of on the win loss since 2020, and he beat Diego Sanchez via unanimous decision, but that's an old Diego Sanchez. I don't think that really says much, and he has been both finished and lost in the third. He's been both finished and lost via unanimous decision in the third round. So if it does get to the third round, I think Michael Morales is definitely a little more live than to knock him out. But for sure, all the way, Michael Morales, he is my 4-weight, Nick.
Hell yeah, man. I think you said 4 weights, so that's 9 weights combined. Sounds like we're pretty confident here. Ian Michael Morales to get the job done. I don't know how much more there is really to say here. Jake Matthews is a good striker, don't get me wrong. He still has a positive striking differential. He is definitely going to be Michael Morales' biggest test, I would say. I mean, although it's hard to say. Max Griffin's a guy that is a good test, but I don't think Max Griffin has really beaten somebody that's that next level, right? I think I remember discussing this fight back in July. We've been doing our show for a while now, and I just remember thinking like Max Griffin is a good fighter, but anytime he fights somebody like with a reputable name, he seems to lose. I think his best win is Tim Means. That's by split decision anyways. So some people wouldn't even think he won that fight. I don't mean to go off on a tangent of Max Griffin, but my point in saying is if your counterpoint to Michael Morales seems to me to be that he is being tested in his biggest way by fighting Jake Matthews, but you made a good point. Jake Matthews does not have momentum right now. He's struggling kind of to find a hot streak, and I just don't think this is a good spot for him to find a hot streak against a guy like Michael Morales who's just destroyed. Like, I mean, we've seen a guy like Alex Pereira have 8 professional MMA fights, and he's been a 2-division champion in the UFC. Michael Morales has 15 fights. He's not lost one. And these aren't just losers he's fighting either. I'd actually argue that 3 of Michael Morales' wins are just as good, if not better, than Jake Matthews, than a lot of Jake Matthews wins. Andre Fialho is a great win for Jake Matthews, no doubt about it. And Li Jin Liang back in 2018 is a good win as well. So there's some good names, but otherwise Jake Matthews just fails to impress as much as I think Michael Morales has. So yeah, not to beat a dead horse for the lack of a better term, but yeah, Jose and I easily picking Michael Morales here.
Yes, sir. And so then that moves on to, so there you have it. Yeah, both Nick and I from Michael Morales, we feel strongly about him. Combined weight of 9, his 5-weight and my 4-weight. And the next fight is my 5-weight, and this is the middleweight bout between Brendan Allen and Paul Craig.
Main event, baby.
Right now, Brendan Allen is the betting favorite at minus 350, while Paul Craig is the betting underdog at plus 255. Honestly, I'm gonna be straight up. I'm going with Brendan Allen on this. He's just on a hot 5-fight winning streak right now, and I called it last time too against Bruno Silva. I'm like, it's very live for him to get a first round submission. He just kind of seems like if he's gonna win the first round, it always seems like it's more via submission. But he does have the hands to carry out the fight and possibly get a unanimous decision win too. Paul Craig, on the other hand, he's more of a submission guy than he is striker, and it's obviously shown with his losses to Johnny Walker and Volkan Ozdemir, two guys with better striking than him, and ultimately they both defeated him unanimously and or finished him, especially like the Johnny Walker one. Paul Craig would just not let go of his leg and just did not want to just let go and move on, and because of that, he risked getting TKO'd in the first round. I don't. Yeah, like I said earlier, I don't know if Brandon Allen will get the submission over Paul Craig just because how superior his jiu-jitsu skills are. They both are phenomenal grapplers, so I'm actually excited to see how this goes. I think it will be a good back and forth against the cage. Definitely, I think they will be trying to initiate grappling at some point, but whether they will finish each other, I'm not sure. I think it's just going to ultimately come down to the hands. And when it comes to the hands, in terms of the striking, Brendan Allen, he has a 3.90. He lands 3.96 significant strikes per minute, while Paul Craig lands 2.57. And reach advantage, I guess it goes to Paul Craig. He's only got 1 inch reach advantage, but really they're almost identical. But Brandon Allen's also 6'2" and Paul Craig's 6'3". Not much different from there. Both guys, I think their grappling in general is just almost going to be just almost fair even, I would say. So I don't know if someone will get knocked out in this one, but I definitely have Brendan Allen winning this, and I feel so strong about him that he's my 5-weight. What are your thoughts on this fight, Nick?
Definitely interested to hear that he's your 5-weight. I like Brendan Allen, and it's tough. It's tough because it's a fight where I kind of like both sides. I like Paul Craig a lot too, just in terms of like the fighters, like outside of just liking them to win. I'm just saying, like in general, I like these dudes. I don't want either one to lose. My pick here though is 3-weight on Paul Craig. So we will disagree on this one. Somewhat confident for me in this 3-weight pick. For me, Paul Craig is in the grappling advantage. I know you mentioned it's maybe considered even, and I don't necessarily think that's too crazy to say at all. Brendan Allen has a lot. In fact, his last 4 of his last 5 wins or something like that are submission wins. So he's very impressive on the ground, and I definitely hesitate. I have no evidence that Paul Craig is better than Brendan Allen in grappling game, other than just what I feel like I've seen before. And our questions will be answered in the ring on Saturday, but I get it. Brendan Allen has maybe more submission wins on his streak, but Paul Craig to me also has a little bit more of an impressive grappling history in professional grappling, not just MMA, but as a grappler, just in jiu-jitsu competitions. So I think those competitions as well, I'm looking at those in terms of okay, the experience from those give you knowledge that you're not going to really get, I feel like, in many other places. So to me, I would slightly lean Paul Craig in the jiu-jitsu side of it. Both dudes have an insane amount of submission wins, so it's really hard to say. I think Brendan Allen has 13, Paul Craig has 13. These dudes have the same amount of professional submission wins, and they've both only ever been submitted once. So it's not. I say all this to say that I'm not even saying the fight's going to be dictated by jiu-jitsu, because I'm also looking at an element of, I think Paul Craig has improved in his boxing over time, and that's my main point here. Aside from the jiu-jitsu, this and that, okay, even if I regress and just say, you know what, Jose, you're right, they're even in grappling, no one's better than the other, I believe that Paul Craig potentially will have better boxing here. I get that the stats don't necessarily show it, because Brendan Allen has a positive striking differential, albeit very slight, and Paul Craig has a negative, albeit very slight. So it's not that different, but there is a positive one and there is a negative. Paul Craig's coming off of a knockout win against Andre Muniz. I consider that to be somewhat impressive. Andre Muniz was not knocked out in the UFC ever before until he fought Paul Craig. And that includes the likes of beating Uriah Hall. I mean, I'm just saying, it might have not been a young Uriah Hall, but Paul Craig was the one that said, nope, I'm going to sleep you, little boy. So I'm just making the point here that Paul Craig, to me, is improving in his striking game. And since he's coming down from light heavyweight, he's got the losses from the light heavyweight division. not the middleweight division. I think he's just going to be, whether or not, yeah, he's an inch taller, sure. I just think he's going to look bigger. I think he's going to be a huskier, bigger dude in there, which also plays into part of my jiu-jitsu thoughts, because I think Paul Craig's the stronger man in general. So if strength becomes a factor, which it likely will at some point, I think Paul Craig's slight advantage for strength as well because of that light heavyweight. And in light heavyweight, he didn't look small at all, in my opinion. So I think he's going to look like a big MFer in the octagon. And it's tough to pick against a guy on a 5-fight win streak with 4 of them being early finishes. So props to Brendan Allen. I don't want him to lose. But having a plus 255 bet on Paul Craig sounds great to me in this spot. That's a great value. I would avoid this fight in any parlays and just take either Paul Craig by, take Paul Craig money line, or I would say you pigeonhole yourself into something like Brendan Allen and over 2.5 or whatever, something like that. But yeah, so I got Paul Craig through weight.
Yeah, no, I agree with. Yeah, that definitely is. Seeing those odds right there, him that big of an underdog, it does surprise me. I thought this would have been closer, just especially just how we just talked about. Like, there's not much. There are slight trade-offs in the striking differential, grappling differential on paper, and just size differences. It's not much different. Even like just their records overall, not too far off from each other as well. Brendan Allen does have 5 more, has a few more fights than them for sure. But that being said, this one, I feel really strong. I think Brendan Allen has found his stride, and I think this is a fight I think he's going to secure. You obviously you're going with Paul Craig. He is your 3-weight, so this is going to be a good showdown for the main event come Saturday, and that moves on to the next fight of the night, which is this is your 4-weight.
Excuse me, I was trying not to cough, but I just had to. My 4-weight, man. So we've done the main, co-main. I'm going to take us down the board a little bit to a bantamweight matchup that is actually featuring a newcomer to the UFC, a guy with a lot of hype in the UFC, a guy that I want to say is the biggest favorite in this main card. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong on that one. I'll have to double check while I'm going through my pick here. But Peyton Talbot is fighting Nick Slick Aguirre. I'm not exactly sure if that's the correct pronunciation of his name there. But it looks like Peyton Talbot is Aguirre. Peyton Talbot is minus 620. Nick Aguirre plus 400. That's currently on FanDuel, so that's pretty steep if you ask me. So I'm not making this my 4-weight because of the great bet value here. I'm making it because Peyton Talbot is the pick, and he is going to KO Nick Aguirre. Nick Aguirre coming off a unanimous decision loss 8 months ago, and this is the reason right here. My Peyton Talbot is the favorite by so much because of his win against Reyes Cortez in the Contender Series. I forget. I want to say he's the underdog going into that fight, but I could be incorrect. He, before that decision win, had gotten nothing but knockout win, knee to punches knockout win, decision win. So Peyton Talbot going crazy, to say the least. This man will press and go for a finish, and you got to be good to not be finished by Peyton Talbot, in my opinion. Nick Aguirre is not going to be that guy, right? That's going to be able to stop him. I get that he hasn't been finished to this point yet in the UFC because he's only had one fight, and it was a decision loss. I think they both feel some urgency to get a win here, especially because Aguirre's coming off of a loss. He's going to feel the urgency to get a win. Talbot is a main event UFC opener. Does that not make it like that's a statement to me? The UFC saying, we're signing you to a deal and you're on the main card right away. That's crazy. there's got to be something in this kid that's great that they like a lot, and I like him to win this fight. What do you think, Jose?
Yeah, so for this one, I agree with you. I also have Peyton Talbot, Talbot, and but the thing is, I wouldn't. He is my two weight, and it's I'm not as strong about him because yes, I have not seen him in the UFC yet. And Nick Aguirre, he's he is coming off a loss to Dan Argueta, and that's via unanimous decision. And Dan Argueta, he himself, he's kind of been up and down right now in the UFC as well. So losing to him doesn't look too good, but at the same time, Dan Argueta isn't that bad. And Nick Aguirre, before that loss, all his wins on his professional record, but one came in the first round. So he is a finisher. 4 out of his 7 wins come via submission and 3 via KO. It's gonna be. I think this is gonna be a better matchup than what people think. The fact that Payne Talbot is that big of a favorite, and we haven't really seen much of him against UFC competition is just crazy. So I think people maybe are writing Nick Aguirre off just because of that Dan Argueta loss, but again, he was pretty legit before that, getting a submission win in the second round and then nothing but first round finishes. He is, I think, slightly the bigger guy too. He has a 4-inch reach advantage as well, and Talbot is 5'10", Nick Aguirre is 5'9", but Nick Aguirre does have a 3.5 reach advantage. So I wonder how much that's going to play. And just Payne Talbot's statistics though, like his in his last fight, because I'm assuming they're taking the stats from the Dana White Contender Series, but
Yeah.
9.67 significant strikes is crazy too. But he did absorb 5.07, and so. But Nick Aguirre too, like the striking differential is just gonna be. I can already tell it's gonna be different, and Talbot is definitely gonna be superior in it because if you've been in the UFC, I guess just that one time too, it's just he didn't show much. Yeah, he just needs to throw more than what he did, and he's done it before. So I think maybe just that fight against Dan Argueta may have been a fluke. His first UFC fight, wouldn't write him off yet. This would definitely be a deciding factor, a fight. But that being said, just haven't seen much overall from both these guys. Both guys look like they were beasts before they entered the UFC. So that being said, just because I haven't seen much of him, I am leaning towards Payne Talbot, but he is my 2-weight.
Dude, I like some of the points you make there because I think I briefly mentioned at the end of my handicap, but I think I like what the most is just under 2.5. Like, what are your thoughts? I guess I would have to look on the books because sometimes they'll still do, a lot of times actually they'll do 1.5 for 3-round fights. So even 1.5 though, dude. Like, what are your thoughts? Because I didn't notice until you mentioned it, but you're right. Even Nick Aguirre had nothing but round 1 finishes, 1 round 2 finish before his UFC debut. Like, I feel like because he lost his first fight in the UFC, does he not have some urgency now to where it's like, okay, I've gotten the jitters out of the way in a way. Like, of course he's still going to be nervous, but it's like, all right, I got my debut out of the way. I've done this and that. I just need to get in there and do me and win. And I feel like doing him is being aggressive and getting the. It looks like in the past it was a lot of KO. It was a mix really, but mostly KO and a couple of chokes in there. So I feel like he's got the urgency. And Talbot, knowing he's this big of a favorite, he's going to want to put on a show. He's going to want to be the next UFC thing. I feel like he's going to go in there like, give me the round 1 KO. So I don't know, man. Maybe even just take the under.
I would say definitely at least 2.5 because the reason is just Payne Talbot. He's never won in the first round too, and I'm just saying, like, I think now because it's the UFC, both guys are legit for sure and are going to be fighting each other. They're not, like, obviously top 15 guys yet, but they're definitely legit enough to be in the UFC. And I think Talbot has never won in the first round, and that's just the only thing that I don't see would go in the first round. Even Nick Aguirre, he's never been finished in the first round either. So his one loss was just via decision, which was what we saw, which was what we were just talking about against Dan Argueta. So I would definitely say at least second round, because if it's first round, I would definitely lean towards Nick Aguirre then if it was going to be the first round. But within the 2.5, it's I would definitely go with Peyton Talbot, but Nick Aguirre is really close to there. Like, this probably would have been my one weight, but the one weight will make more sense when I talk about it. So, that being said, yeah, I would definitely say this fight's probably not going to go the distance. I would at least say 2.5, but you could be right about
That's interesting.
the first round.
I get what you're saying too, but part of me is like you got it's like the dichotomy of betting, right? You have to decide when to pick your battles, and you're right. There's no history that shows Peyton Talbot has a first round knockout, but I don't honestly like. I could easily see that there's been a lot of firsts happening. I would not be surprised. Like, we have to be the ones to find when that is going to be the first. The first time either Talbot gets knocked out or the first time Aguirre gets finished in the first round. Like, those things, essentially what I'm trying to say is there's the same chance every time that those are going to happen. And it's up to us to decide when that's going to happen. And that's fair if you don't think it's going to be this fight. I think it has a good chance to be this fight. But it does make it tough.
I hear that.
1.5 is tough to pick.
That's totally fair, man. And so yeah, that being said, I think for this one, I don't know, I don't have much to say on it, but I'll definitely I agree with you on Payton. He's your 4 weight, but for me he's my 2 weight. But obviously you feel stronger about it than I do. But I would love to see more out of both of them. And maybe after that, then I'd probably start moving them more higher up in my rankings after this weekend.
Yeah,
but yeah, he's my 2 weight.
So, cool. Well, yeah, then that brings us to your 3 weight. I'm pretty sure it's flying by. We've already talked about 3 of the fights. We got 2 left.
So my 3 weight is going to be the lightweight bout between Chase Hooper and Jordan Leavitt. Right now, Chase Hooper is the betting favorite at -265, while Leavitt is the betting underdog at +200. Leavitt right now, he's coming off a nice first round TKO over Victor Martinez, and Chase, he's also coming off a first win, a 3-round unanimous decision win over Nick Fiore, and that, I think, both guys kind of been on an up and down battle as of lately. Just win-loss, win-loss. That being said, this one, I'm going to go with the slightly older Jordan Leavitt. Even though he's the underdog, he's only 11-2, and he did lose to Patty via submission. That is a bit concerning, because I just genuinely don't think Patty, I think there's a lot of hype to it, but I mean, I guess that's to find out later. But Chase Hooper too, I think he's just going to be a little undersized, even though they're the same weight. I think he's just going to be a little just on the he is obviously going to be leaner, but I think Jordan Leavitt is probably going to be stronger than him, and Jordan Leavitt is a pretty agile guy. He's pretty flexible, so I think this is going to be a great striking match. Chase Hooper, when it comes to striking, he has phenomenal striking, so I think I think the striking is pretty much the biggest thing, is why he's the big favorite. And he lands 5 significant strikes per minute, while Jordan Leavitt, he lands 2.64. Not bad, but Chase Hooper does absorb more. He absorbs 3.67 significant strikes per minute, while Jordan Leavitt only 1.93. And Chase Hooper only has a 3-inch reach advantage. I think Jordan Leavitt, he's going to be able to sneak his way in and definitely land punches. And when it comes to grappling, both guys are good grapplers. Jordan Leavitt may be the one to initiate a takedown, but Chase Hooper, he's got good jiu-jitsu as well. 5 out of his 12 wins come via submission. So that being said, this was a good middle ground fight for me. It was almost, I don't want to say a coin toss, but yeah, I like where I placed it at my 3-weight, because my 1-weight, I definitely feel a lot stronger about that for them. But for this one, I definitely have Jordan Leavitt going as my 3-weight. What are your thoughts on this fight, Nick?
Looks like we'll have another one to disagree on. I'm picking Chase Hooper here with my 2-weight. Slightly less confident than you here, but in the end, Chase Hooper to me, you highlighted towards the end of your handicap the striking, and that's kind of what I'm getting at here. I think Chase Hooper is going to have you be able to utilize his size and reach advantage to outstrike and outbox Jordan Levitt. I think Jordan Levitt, you're correct. I think he probably is in general the stronger guy, and I think the being more a little bit more stocky and stubby at 5'9" is going to provide a little bit more of a jiu-jitsu advantage if it became to be a factor, right? But I just don't think that it's going to work out for Jordan Levitt if he tries to go for takedowns. I think Chase Hooper will be able to control, especially if he's on top. Chase Hooper has, what is it, 16 professional MMA fights, and he's not been submitted yet. Jordan Levitt, 13 MMA fights, has been submitted. Granted, Paddy the Baddy, we don't know yet. He could be good, he could not be good. Well, I'm kind of with you. I'm not really sold on Paddy at all. So that alone just makes me think, okay, maybe Chase Hooper's at best, maybe Chase Hooper's even with Levitt. It's like, okay, maybe they're even on the ground. And I just like Chase Hooper striking a little bit more here. I'd almost lean this to go over on rounds. I'm not sure either guy's going to get a finish here, but you really never know. Two of Chase Hooper's last 3 fights were early finishes. Granted, one of them was almost like it was later in the 3rd round, so it took a while on that one. But that being said, 2 of his last 3 fights would have hit the over anyways because of how late that KO came. And yeah, that being said, I'd look at Chase Hooper over here. Chase Hooper and over 1.5 rounds. I think potentially decision win over Jordan Levitt.
Oh yeah, so that this one's definitely one we are disagreeing on. Then, yeah, it's again like for me it was more like a coin flip. You know, there are like you said good arguments for Chase Hooper, and I agree with you. So I totally see why he's your 2 weight. But that being said, yeah, this is one we'll both will agree to disagree on, with Jordan Leavitt being my 3 weight and Chase Hooper being your 2 weight.
Yeah, man, I am want to make it clear too that I'm not really ready to jump on the Chase Hooper hype train. Like he was supposed to be like this huge big prospect, loses to Alex Caceres, gets a win, loses to Steven Peterson, gets a win, loses to Steve Garcia, gets a win. So I I would have loved to put Chase Hooper as a more confident pick, but he cannot get a streak going. This is imperative for him to go in there and get the win and to show, because Jordan Levitt is a respectable opponent. There's no doubt about it. I can respect the guy who beats Jordan Levitt. So, yeah, I just wanted to add that note on there that like I feel like a lot of people just like to hop back on Chase Hooper's hype train. I'm not on the hype train. I just think if he plays the way he should, he'll get the win. But yeah, that being said, we'll move on to the last pick of Saturday night for us. And it's funny because we both are down to our one weights, and we're both down to the female fight. So that's funny that we were both not looking to put too much confidence on that. And that's not necessarily to say that we don't have confidence in women's MMA, because we've picked a lot of women's MMA picks in the 4 and 5 weight range. It just doesn't happen to pan out this time. Amanda Hebos is coming down, I believe, from 125 to 115 to fight Luana Pinheiro. And this is an interesting fight earlier on the main card, mainly because Luana is a prospect in her own right. She's got 3 UFC fights coming off of her Contender Series win to get a contract. Granted, one of those wins is marked as a disqualification. She gets a unanimous win in a decision that was split. So Luana Pinheiro's shown flashes, but also shown like doubts. And even though Hebos is coming off of a Macy Barber loss in her own right, I think it's a good move for her to be coming down from 125 to 115. And I think she's by far Luana Pinheiro's biggest shot in her UFC career. And I'm just not sure she's quite ready. I think Hebos could potentially choke her out. I think Hebos could also still potentially be better on the feet. But I would still lean for Hebos to do something on the ground, grappling wise, choke her out. Hebos does average over 2 takedowns per fight at 3-round fight. And she only has one submission win, or excuse me, two. She has 2 submission wins, but not since 2020. And I find she may break that streak on Saturday night. Jose, what do you think?
Yeah, so for this fight, just because how bad my luck I think has been with women's MMA lately, I am taking a risk on this one. I'm going with Luana, but she is obviously my one weight. Being 11-1, she has not lost since 2017, and that was via split decision. And yes, one of those wins against Randa Marcos was a disqualification. I do admit that, but even if you omit that fight alone, still, you know, same thing. Just lost one fight by split decision and a lot of first round wins too, which is pretty crazy. And again, not counting that disqualification first round. But Amanda Ribas, yeah, she's totally just this is I think a good fight for her too. That's why I have very low confidence in Luana. But it's women's MMA, and I just I'm willing to take a risk on this one. Amanda Ribas, I'm pretty sure I think she's let me down before too. I think I had her over uh, um, either Marina
Probably
Rodriguez or Katlyn
Barber.
Chookagian at some point. So definitely over maybe Katlyn Chookagian
Probably Barber.
or Barber. Yeah, it was actually Barber. Yeah, you're right. It was Barber earlier this year. Yep. And that being said, I think Luana may bring like a similar. She's not as big as Ribas, but and nor was Macy Barber. So that's why I'm just like not leaning too heavy on Amanda Ribas. And also, you mentioned she's cutting weight. I want to see how good she actually looks at this weight class, and I think that's also maybe a contributor to why she's such a big favorite. She's going to be probably the bigger girl, and she has the most experience, more experience in the UFC compared to Luana. So it's very live, that she just obviously gets his win. And, maybe for some people, she's definitely their 5 or 4 weight. But for me, just because it's women's MMA, really this one's also a coin toss between Amanda Ribas or Luana being my one weight. So, sorry, like that's like my answer ultimately to that. Luana, she does throw a good amount of significant strikes per minute, 3.86. Amanda Ribas, 4.73. Both absorb about the same, 3.67 for Luana and 3.24 for Amanda Ribas, and both are about equal when it comes to the grappling and exchanges. Both like to at least go for some type of takedown at some point in the middle. At some point in the fight, it's gonna be like almost a 50-50 when it comes to the grappling too, I believe. In terms of submissions too, Luana's got 5 submissions out of her 11 wins. 5 come via submission. So and Amanda Ribas, out of her 11, 4 come submissions. So it's going to be just a quick, I think, like a kind of a coin toss on this one as well. But I'm going with Luana as my one weight, Nick.
Sounds good, man. Yeah, so we will disagree, but it's less confident for us both. I also wanted to make a comment that I was impressed that Hebos went 5-round minutes with Katlyn Chookagian back in 2022. Split decision loss, fight of the night bonus. Pretty impressed by that. I think mainly the point we get from that is that Hebos is a good striker. She can stand and contend. And that being said, not sure about the same with Pinheiro yet, but she could prove me wrong at least on Saturday. So yeah, that being said though, that's our 5 picks for Saturday afternoon. Moneyline MMA lock of the week is Michael Morales, 9 total confidence points. And as far as the underdogs go, Paul Craig, my 3 weight, is a plus 250 underdog if you want to head in that direction. But otherwise, not too much going on. I believe Jordan Levitt is the underdog, which is also Jose's 3 weight. So depending on your confidence level in our 3 weight range picks, go ahead and let us know down below in the comments who you'll be betting on. I'll be taking Paul Craig, Michael Morales this week. And like I said, I think we have the next week off here for Thanksgiving and all that. But we will return early December when the UFC returns. So thanks for listening and have a great rest of your day.